Hello everyone, welcome to my May and June 2020 haul video. Hello everyone, welcome back to another haul video. I'm once again back on the bi-monthly schedule as opposed to the tri-monthly schedule that I did in the previous haul video. But here I'm going to be covering all the things I picked up in May and June of 2020. As many of you already know this, and those of you in the future watching this, we've pretty much been under lockdown because of a pandemic, so there's just been a lot of staying at home and a lot of buying stuff over the internet, so you're going to see a lot of movies in this haul video. But before I get into all of the movies, let me get to all the comic book related items that I picked up for May and June, and I was honestly expecting there to be a lot more. What I really didn't factor in is that the comic book industry pretty much came to a standstill there for a little while where nothing was being done, so luckily I didn't have a huge stack of comic books that I had to pay for after, things were lifted up a little bit and I could actually get to my local comic book store. So without further ado, here they are. First up here is the X-Men Giant Size Annual number 1, and this is written by Jonathan Hickman. Next up is also X-Men by Jonathan Hickman, and this is issue number 8. And then next up is also X-Men by Jonathan Hickman, and this is issue number 9. And the reason why I kind of mentioned that is because I hadn't been to my local comic book store until early March, so I was expecting a whole stack of comic books. But next up here is New Mutants number 9. And then next up here is Firefly number 15 from Boom Studios. And then lastly, but surely not least, is Shazam issue number 12 from DC Comics. So let's just get into all of the Blu-ray and 4K UHD items that I picked up. And first up here is actually a television series, which I don't buy too many of them these days. And this was for a specific special reason. And this is the complete first season of the Dick Van Dyke Show on Blu-ray. And the reason why I bought this is because recently Carl Reiner, who was one of the people heavily involved in the Dick Van Dyke Show, had recently passed away. And I've been actually wanting to get this for years. There are a couple of classic television series that got Blu-ray releases a few years ago, and then they've kind of stopped doing that for now, just because I don't think they sold well, and they were probably very expensive to produce. And the Dick Van Dyke Show was luckily one of those that did get to come out, and the whole series actually came out. There's a complete series set of the Dick Van Dyke Show, but it is out of print, but you can still get each individual season. But of course, it costs you a lot more to go that route than to have gotten the complete series set back in the day when it was in print. But I'm hopefully going to be able to collect all of these because I've wanted to for several years, and this is a classic show that I watched when I was a kid, and I absolutely loved it. Next up here is a movie I watched for the first time in the month of June for Pride Month, and it is coincidentally also called Pride. And this is a British film about the coal miners' strike in the 1980s. And this is a really fantastic, underrated film that came out a few years ago. I highly recommend watching this any way you can, whether it's through streaming, whether it's through buying this Blu-ray. But yeah, please watch this movie because it's absolutely fantastic and totally underrated. Next up is actually one of my favorite films from last year, and this is a film directed by Greta Gerwig, and that is Little Women. This is, of course, one of many adaptations of the classic book Little Women. And yeah, I absolutely love this film. It was, I believe, in my top 10, top 15 last year, and just an astounding cast and extremely well directed. Next up is actually a Blu-ray to Blu-ray upgrade, and this is the Shout Select Edition of Rob Reiner's When Harry Met Sally. And this is, of course, a classic romantic comedy that I think many of you have seen. If you haven't seen it, it is one of the all-time classic romantic comedies. And this film, of course, stars Billy Crystal as well as Meg Ryan. And this edition here has a new special feature That's in conversation with Billy Crystal and Rob Reiner. It has a new 4K scan of the original camera negative, so it's worth an upgrade if you have the older Blu-ray, or if you have the DVD, or if you don't have it at all. And next up is actually one of the movies I was able to see in theaters earlier this year, and I actually saw it twice. And this is Birds of Prey. And I actually really enjoyed this film a lot. And it's not without its issues, not without its problems, but I think that Margot Robbie really carries the film extremely well as the character of Harley Quinn. This is, of course, the 4K UHD edition. I do highly recommend this movie because you gotta go into it knowing that these characters aren't the big-time characters that you're used to seeing from comic book movies, but hopefully it gives you more of an interest to get into them in other ways. Next up is actually a movie that I had no previous edition of before, but I've been looking to get for several years, and this is a 4K Ultra HD edition of Philadelphia. This was directed by the late Jonathan Demme, and this 4K looks absolutely fantastic. And this film, of course, stars Tom Hanks as well as Denzel Washington. This was, I believe, the first Oscar-winning film for Tom Hanks. Following up this, he would, of course, win for Forrest Gump, which I think came out the next year. So kind of, back-to-back Oscars for him. But this is a really solid, really good film. Next up is one of my favorite, probably best horror films I've ever seen. And this is the classic film Candyman, and this is the Scream Factory Collector's Edition of Candyman, and this was luckily on sale randomly on Amazon, and I was really able to get it for a good price, obviously without the slipcover, because the slipcovers for Scream Factory editions are really rare and can be very expensive, and if you don't scoop these up when they come out, chances are you're going to miss out on them, unless of course you get lucky someplace else. But this is a great film. This edition here is a 2-disc edition, has lots of special features, has 2 cuts of the movie, so yeah, this is the edition to get if you're here in the States, unless you have access to the Arrow release that is from the UK. Then, whichever one you prefer, get that one, but this is definitely an all-time horror movie that I highly recommend. Next up is a group of stuff that I actually got for my birthday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies I got for my birthday. First up here is Crybaby, starring Johnny Depp, and this is a John Waters film from the 90s, and if you haven't been following me for a very long time, or if you just don't know in general, I'm a gigantic fan of John Waters, and I need to get all of his films, and I'm kind of waiting for them all to come out on Blu-ray, because I have a feeling that they will eventually. I just have to be patient. But this is Crybaby starring Johnny Depp. It's his musical film. People like to think that Hairspray is his musical film, but that's more of his dance film. Coincidentally, this other film I have here, which I just mentioned, is Hairspray, another John Waters film. And this, of course, got turned into a Broadway musical. It got a remake that came out, I believe, in the mid-2000s or so. So this is a film I think a lot of people know of. And this is probably his most tame film. This is his PG film. This is his film for everyone to see. Unlike all of his other films, which tend to be either PG-13, rated R, or perhaps an other rating. These are 2 great John Waters films. And the Blu-rays do come with really decent special features, which I was really happy to see. Next up is a DVD to Blu-ray upgrade that I've been wanting to make for several years, and this is High Fidelity, directed by Stephen Frears, and starring John Cusack. And this is a film that I've had in my collection for a very long time. I've seen it a few times, but I really wanted to get this Blu-ray just to upgrade from the standard definition DVD, and it looks okay. They recently did a Hulu series that is a remake of this, but in a television series form, starring Zoe Kravitz as the same character that John Cusack plays. Check this movie out if you haven't already. Next up is Chaplin, which is an early film starring Robert Downey Jr., and this is a biopic, if you will, of the great Charlie Chaplin. I mean, he's my favorite silent movie actor, and just silent movie, icon in general. So this is a film that came out in 1992, and was really a breakout role for Robert Downey Jr. Next up is a DVD to Blu-ray upgrade, and that is Vanilla Sky. And this is a film directed by Cameron Crowe, starring, of course, Tom Cruise, as you see here on the cover, as well as Penelope Cruz. No relation, of course. But this is a film I think is super underrated. I really like this film a lot. And I know a lot of people don't like it. I still need to see the film, the original foreign language film that this film was based on. But this film I really like a lot. And next up is honestly one of my favorite films of all time. It's a film that I just recently did a whole podcast episode of on my podcast along with my co-host Stephen Billings called Cinema Discovery Project, and we went through this whole film, and this is Marty starring Ernest Borgnine. This is a Best Picture winner from 1955. This is the Kino Lorber Blu-ray release, and yeah, this movie is absolutely amazing. There's just so much to say about it that I couldn't even get into right now because they would just go on forever and ever. But check this movie out if you haven't already. It's extremely contemporary with its themes. Next up are three films that I got from the now semi-defunct boutique label of Twilight Time. It still exists, but not in quite this form, not in its own entity, and it's now been absorbed into Screen Archives. But they were having a sale basically for the last several months just to get rid of as much stock as they possibly can, so I picked up three movies. And the first one here is Beat the Devil, which stars the great Humphrey Bogart, and this is a film that is directed by John Huston, so it's going to go right into my John Huston section. And this is a film actually I've never seen before, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. And next up here is an Oliver Stone film, and that is Talk Radio, and I've had this on DVD for years, but it's been quite a few years since I've seen it. And lastly here is another film starring the great Humphrey Bogart, and that is The Barefoot Contessa. This is a film directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz. So next up here are a bunch of things I got from Kino Lorber Classics, and these were on sale because they had several sales during the last couple of months. The first up here is Port of Shadows, which is a film by Marcel Carné, and this is a film I've never seen before. I've actually seen none of Marcel Carné's work. I think several of his films are on the Criterion Collection, so I have to get my hands on those, but this was one that I was looking to get for years, and they just happened to come out with it on Blu-ray recently. Next up here is a film that I absolutely love, and this is a Billy Wilder film that I've been wanting to buy for so many years, and this is Witness for the Prosecution. And this film stars Tyrone Power, Marlene Dietrich, Charles Laughton. This is an amazing, fantastic film, and I absolutely love it. I think Charles Laughton is probably one of the best actors of all time that people really don't talk about enough, because he's amazing in this movie and a lot of other films that he was in. Next up here is a DVD to Blu-ray upgrade that I've been wanting to make and was waiting so many years for it to finally happen, and this is Todd Haynes' Far From Heaven, starring, of course, the great Julianne Moore. This is just a film that I absolutely love. I really need to beef up my Todd Haynes section because I really want to do a movie collection spotlight on Todd Haynes, but I have to get more of his films. And last is a film by Chan-wook Park, or Park Chan-wook, and this is Thirst. And this is another DVD to Blu-ray upgrade, and this is one that I've been looking for a while. I won't really say too much about this movie because I kind of want people to discover it on their own, but as you can kind of tell from the cover, it is a vampire film, but there's some stuff in here. I'm really glad to finally upgrade my DVD to this Blu-ray. And next up is actually a Criterion release that I got during June because I didn't think that the sale was going to happen this year, but it actually did happen. But I love this movie so much, and it was actually my second favorite film from 2019, and this is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, directed by Celine Sciamma, and this is just a film that blew me away in all of its aspects, and I was so lucky to see it before we did a podcast episode about our favorite movies from last year, because I got to gush about it, and I was really excited to hear that Criterion was releasing it, and it actually came out around my birthday, so this was kind of like a late birthday present to myself. But yeah, this is Portrait of a Lady on Fire. See this movie any way you can. It is a foreign language film. It's in French, I believe, but it is an astonishing film. The next four things I have, I kind of saved the best for last, so here we go. The first up here is the Barbara Stanwyck collection. This is a 3-movie set from Kino Lorber, and the reason why I got this is because I'm a big fan of Barbara Stanwyck. I've already done a Blu-ray review of this set, in which I go through all of the films, and I just go through the packaging and everything like that. There's really not much to the packaging in any special way, but I really love that Kino is putting out a bunch of these releases. So this is the first one that I bought, and I can't wait to buy the others. The next thing is something that I was hunting for months for. It's one of those things where you plan on buying it, but then you don't, and then you miss out on it, and you think you missed out on it forever. And this is the limited edition Arrow release of RoboCop. And man, this is a fantastic, fantastic edition. This comes with 2 different cuts of the film. It's a 2-disc set. It comes with a hardcover book as well as a poster, I believe. And this is, just a first-rate, first-class release from Arrow, as they typically do. And I can't say this enough. If you want these limited releases, get them as soon as you possibly can, because once they're gone and out of print, they're really tough to track down for a decent price, but sometimes you get lucky and you can find one, like I did. If you're curious about this, I think I'm going to do a more in-depth review of it, just because it's that cool of a release. And next up is also something I've been wanting to get for several years, also released by Kino, but this came out several years ago. And this is Pioneers of African American Cinema, and this is a set of just early films from the 20th century, the early days of cinema, that all pertain to African American cinema. And they all are like silent films. There's a lot of shorts in here and some features as well, but there is just a lot to go into with this. And this is very much accompanies the Pioneers set I have for early female filmmakers. And lastly, but certainly not least, and I had to wait and wait for this, this is my first ever Indicator series release that I've picked up, and this is The Wonderful Worlds of Ray Harryhausen, Volume 1, 1955 to 1960, and this has 3 films. This has It Came From Beneath the Sea, 20 Million Miles to Earth, and The 3 Worlds of Gulliver, and this is a gorgeous box set, and I am so late to the Indicator Powerhouse Films series of sets, and I really hate myself for waiting so long, because these box sets specifically are limited to 6,000 copies. So once they're gone, they're really hard to get. I know the Volume 2 of the Ray Harryhausen box sets are out of print, as well as the Sinbad Trilogy set is also out of print, which are also Ray Harryhausen films, and they go for hundreds of dollars on eBay. So I really hate myself for not getting these when I had the chance. I was aware of them, and I knew how great they were, but I didn't want to, pull the trigger too early, and I ended up missing out. But I'm here now, so I'm now scouring the internet looking for some of the releases that I missed out on. But this is a fantastic set that I'm definitely going to do a more in-depth review of, because it's worth to know for collectors that these sets exist. So that has been my entire May and June of 2020 haul video. If there's anything you want to see in any more depth, please let me know. Also, if you like this video, please check out the other videos on my channel and subscribe.